put this together just because we recently officially contracted with the solar company, and it's just come up in conversation with different people in the neighborhood as far as things that I've learned and decisions or thoughts that other people were having similarly as far as if it was an option for them. So I thought maybe sharing my experience a little bit might be helpful in people having a better idea if it's really time for them to go solar as well. Trying to think. So my wife and I, Laura, we just celebrated our 5th year anniversary of living in the neighborhood back in March. It's kind of hard to believe how quickly the time's gone. But if you don't know exactly which house is ours, it's actually right there on the first screen. It's right there. So when you come into the neighborhood, we're the first house right in front of the stop sign. And so, like I said, this journey that we kind of went through over the past couple of months, it really started back right after the hailstorm, and some neighbors and I were having some conversations as far as what we might do as far as getting new roofs, and started toying with the idea of, oh, maybe we should, look at solar too. And then as I went ahead and kind of started doing some investigation and a little bit of research, Tesla and Certainty really kind of stuck out for me. So for a long time, they were my two main companies that I was really jonesing to see how that type of a solution would work for our house. So for me, I mean, I kind of felt like this was meant to be, right? Like we needed to get a new roof, and getting solar sounds like a great investment. And these two companies are considered the industry leaders as far as solar roofs go. So, and then on top of that, when we started to hear about the rebates and the incentives, it seemed like solar and a roof, being all in one, were really kind of a perfect pair. So to do our due diligence, we actually even went ahead and checked out some other solar roof companies. These were a few other ones that I looked at, GAF, and a company called Luma, and then a third one called Atlantis Solar. They all have their own solar roofs. Luma and Atlantis Solar are very, very expensive, and quickly were from a pricing standpoint, were not an option. So what happened? Because obviously, to kind of spoil some of the story, we're not moving forward with Tesla. We're not moving forward with Certainty. It was kind of interesting. So the feedback we started to get was specifically related to this and this. And those are called dormers. So these two dormers are so large that they consume a significant amount of space on the south side of our roof. And the contingencies that are needed in order to install a solar roof were really prohibitive with having these dormers. So in many respects, it was definitely something that I was disappointed to hear about, slightly. Okay, maybe a little more than slightly. Okay, say I was actually really disappointed. Yeah, really disappointed. And I quickly came to realize that if I really was committed to doing some kind of solar solution, I needed some more help to really kind of figure this out. And that's where a company called EnergySage came in. I found them online, and they advertise themselves as an unbiased solar matchmaker. They have a web portal that connects you with a network of their pre-screened solar installers. I thought their website was actually pretty easy to use and intuitive. They also provided a trove of information and resources to really help you learn and understand solar. And probably the most invaluable thing was that they actually aggregated the solar quotes from the different vendors. They calculated financial benefits, and then they actually presented them back to you in a really easy to understand format. Some of the other things that I really liked too was they gave us access to an EnergySage advisor. So this is actually a real live person that you can make an appointment with, and they can help you answer questions, understand quotes, the different companies, what the technologies are. And I think the best part for me was that it wasn't a salesperson. They weren't trying to push me into making a decision one way or the other. They really wanted to try and help me learn and understand and figure out if this was the right thing for me. So it really helped give us a greater control over the research and selection process. Other things I really liked is that we didn't get any unwanted phone calls, and that we actually had some added privacy too, in that when we used email to communicate with the vendors, our email addresses were actually masked. So we were able to successfully email back and forth with the vendors, but they never actually were able to see what our email addresses were. So again, just an extra added level of privacy. So almost the entire process with EnergySage was online. So we received and compared the multiple solar quotes first, and then over a period of time, we were able to decide which installer was right for us. So this is an example or just a sample of what our EnergySage portal looked like. They call it My Marketplace. And this is a screenshot of the 3 different vendors and the quotes that we received. Some interesting things to kind of point out are that you can send them a message, and again, that's the email option. You can schedule a call or a virtual visit with them. Again, the portal breaks down and does a lot of the financial benefits. So one of the things that I liked that they did was they broke everything down in a price per watt, similar to almost like a dollars per gallon or dollars per pound, like in a grocery store. So you really it really helped you see almost like an apples to apples comparison between the vendors and what they were offering. They also offered this information called need met, and I put a little question mark there because we're going to get into that in a little bit, but it said that the need met is 103%. Some other things that it showed was obviously which panel each vendor offered, what the total expected savings would be over the period of time. I think it's 25 years. And then obviously there's a button over here. So if you wanted to see more details of the quote, you can certainly do that. So this is actually an expanded view of this particular quote. So again, you can see more details of the quote. So you can see the number of panels that were proposed, the actual watts per panel, the number of inverters, and we're going to get into inverters in a little bit. What the expected system size would be. This was an 8.82 kilowatt system, and again, that's based on the number of panels and watts per panel. And again, the year 1 production estimate. So they were able to calculate how much electricity they expected the system to produce in the first year. And again, they also had links to look in more detail at the panel and the inverter as well. Over here, this is just some extra information that they provided for you. So if you were going to go through a cash purchase versus a loan, they kind of broke down those financials. So you can kind of see what your upfront costs were and then dollars spent over time. Again, they kind of did all the math for you. So if you're not a math person like me, it definitely made life a lot easier. Let's see. Next slide, sorry. Okay, and this is just a blown up view of the layout of the proposed panels and where they would fit on the roof. So you can obviously see this is on the west side of the house. So south is obviously down, north is facing up. This is the space between the 2 large dormers that I pointed out earlier, and this is the area just to the right of the dormers. So need met. So we talked about that just a little bit ago. So really, what is that, and how is that calculated? So I thought this was actually really amazing. There is a website called the PV Watts calculator that basically estimates the energy production and cost of energy of a, well, it's called a grid connected photovoltaic energy system. That's just a lot of fancy words for a solar system. And this is, they have this information and can calculate this all over the world. So basically, they're able to drill down and identify where our house is, and based on, I believe it's 10 years worth of meteorological data and looking at angles of the sun and all these different things, they're able to calculate and estimate the expected amount of energy that you're going to produce in the course of a year. Again, really, really neat. And it's free for everybody to use, so you could certainly go there. I just posted the link in there as well. So there were certainly some other factors to consider. So obviously, is my roof good for solar? So we already got turned down for solar roofs, so solar panels was kind of the next thing. So there were definitely some other things that we had to look at. Some factors when you're looking at whether your roof is a good fit for solar, one of them is your roof type. So I believe everyone in the Meadows has an asphalt roof, and this is something that solar installers can work with very easily, and you really don't have to worry about a lot of damage or any damage. It's a standard installation. They have standard penetrating mounts that are used for standard installation. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later as far as warranty coverages with the install as well. So directions. So south-facing roofs are the most effective. But if you don't have a south-facing roof, that's actually okay. Southeast and southwest facing panels will also work. If you cannot manage a southern exposure on your roof, an east or west facing roof can still get enough sunshine to make going solar worthwhile. So it really, hopefully that helps dispel some concerns some people may have that, oh, well, my roof doesn't face south, or it doesn't have good direction to the sun, so I'm clearly not a candidate. That's not necessarily the case. Some other factors that you should obviously look at are things like obstruction. So do you have large trees or buildings that shade your roof? Because this will obviously impact your production. The age of your roof. So one of the things with the hailstorm is that many residents in the neighborhood are now getting new roofs. If your roof is at the end of its life, it's very much worth considering a replacement prior to going to solar, because when you do eventually have to go change out your roof, obviously there would be a cost to absorb with replacing the solar panels and having them reinstalled. Something else to consider is the tilt of your roof. The best angle is between 30 and 40 degrees. In speaking with some of the roofers that we've had, just in getting quotes, they've estimated that the roof pitch on our houses are 8/12. It's either 8/12 on the back of our house, and then maybe up to 10/12 in the front. And then the dormers themselves are what appear to be 12/12. So the point is that an 8/12, or actually up to a 10/12 roof pitch, it's rarely between that 30 and 40 degree mark. So the tilt of the roof is actually is right on target. So the real pot of gold for most of the homes in the neighborhood really are good candidates. But the best houses are really the ones that face north, with the back of their house facing south, and are free of obstruction, so things like trees, etc. Because there's really a significant square footage for solar panels, and obviously it also reduces any aesthetic impacts or concerns that people may have. So other things, and again, this was part of the education process as far as learning about solar systems. So really, what are the main parts that make up a solar system? The standard one, obviously, is the solar panels. So I think this is kind of a given. Everybody kind of knows this. These are the black rectangles that are, in most cases, on people's roofs. But one of the other things that's really important is the inverter. The inverter is one of the most important parts of a solar panel system. It's really where the magic happens. So sunlight, when it interacts with the solar panels, it creates DC current. DC current is not really usable in your home. It has to be converted. So that output from the sun really needs to be converted so your solar into usable electricity for your home. Now, inverters. So there's really three major technologies to consider. There's three types. So you have a string inverter, you have string inverters that are paired with power optimizers and microinverters. So this is going to get a little bit technical, so I try to keep it as simple as possible. But again, it's really important to understand this if it's something that you're going to look at as an investment for your home. So string inverters. So string inverters really work well with simple setups that are on sunny south-facing roofs. You can see in the little picture that string inverters are basically what they are. All the different solar panels are strung together in an array and then are fed back to a main inverter. This solution has been around for quite a long time. It's really the most cost-effective option available. But it's worth noting that you can only produce as much electricity as the least productive panel in your system. So it's really, your system's only as good as its weakest link. Think of it that way. So again, an example is in this screenshot here where you have 3 panels that are working at 100% capacity, but one's only working at 70%. So the line here of demarcation obviously brings down all 4 panels to a threshold of 70% because they're all strung together. So you're really only getting 70% capacity out of all 4 panels. So this is really problematic if you have shading or if there's some panels that may be facing different directions on your roofs. However, there are other options. Microinverters. So microinverters are small inverters that are located at each individual panel, and you can kind of see that in the picture. So each microinverter gets attached to a panel. And this is really good because it monitors the performance of each panel separately. It's better for when you have more complicated installations or those installations that have to factor in shade. Even if you have one panel that isn't producing electricity very well, the other panels still are able to continue to perform efficiently at their peak performance. And then third, so this is a string inverter with a power optimizer. So this is really kind of a hybrid between string inverters and microinverters. So an optimizer gets located at each individual solar panel. What these do are they condition the electricity before actually sending it down the string and then feeding it to the main inverter. So again, you can kind of see that in this picture. So an optimizer gets attached to a solar panel, conditions and maintains the current coming off of the solar panel, and then feeds it down the main line into the inverter. This also provides similar monitoring and production benefits to microinverters. So again, if you have one panel that's underperforming because of shade or maybe some other factors, the rest of the panels are still able to continue to perform efficiently. So something else, so solar financing. And this has come up in various conversations, and definitely was something that in the initial research that I did, I kind of touched on solar financing. So there's really 3 different options. You have solar leases, you have power purchase agreements, also known as PPAs, or you can obviously buy your system outright. So just to kind of touch on this a little bit, a solar lease, it's a no money down solution. You basically pay a monthly fee for the system, and typically your monthly payment should be lower than your current electric bill. It's estimated, and these are not exact because every situation may be a little bit different, but you're approximately going to save anywhere from 10 to 15% off of your electric bill. It's worth noting, though, that over time, as utility rates will continue to rise, because your monthly fee is consistent, so those savings do typically increase over time because of the utility rate rising. One of the benefits is that there is zero maintenance for the equipment. So if something goes wrong, it's not your problem. You call the leasing company and they take care of it. It is worth noting, though, that the lease terms are usually a considerable period of time. They're typically around 20 years. Something else to note is that with the solar lease, you can't claim any tax rebates, tax credits, or incentives. And then if you were to ever sell your home and needed to move, you either need to buy out of your lease or you need to include that in the sale of your home to whoever you sell it to. Now, a solar PPA is a little bit different. Again, it's typically a no money down solution. You basically are purchasing the electricity from your PPA, whoever you have your PPA with, at a lower rate than the utility. So again, your monthly payment's typically going to be lower than your current electric bill. The savings are pretty much consistent, anywhere from a 10 to a 15% savings on your electric bill. And again, your savings over time will increase because utility rates are invariably going to rise. Again, it's zero maintenance. You cannot claim any rebates, tax credits, or incentives on this either. And similarly, if you sell your home and need to move, again, you're either going to have to buy out or include that in the sale of your home. Now, system ownership. This is basically you're purchasing outright or you're financing your purchase with a loan. So basically, your cost per month is your loan payment plus any electricity that you use that's in excess of what your system produced. However, once your system's paid for, you're only paying for the excess electricity that you use. The other advantage is that you have the benefit of any tax rebates, tax credits, or incentives. Some of the ones that are most notable are the Solar Investment Tax Credit, or the SITC, something called SRECs, which are Solar Renewable Energy Credits, and then something called net metering, which Pennsylvania is a state that does net metering. And this is basically credits for any electricity that you ended up producing and adding back to the grid. And then over the long term, say over a period of 25 years, an outright purchase of your solar system really does provide for you the most cost savings. Again, this is, I feel like some of this is a lot to digest. So again, the benefits of having EnergySage was really instrumental in really helping me learn a lot of these things. So let's talk a little bit more about the tax credits and incentives. So like I said, so there's the SITC, which you are able to use for your solar panel purchase. Something else that's not readily known is that you can also take that tax credit on part of your new roof. So for many of us in the neighborhood, we're getting new roofs. If we install solar, we can actually claim part of that new roof with the tax credit. And I'll get into that in just a minute. SREC, so obviously those are the renewable energy credits, and then net metering. So the solar investment tax credit. So this is basically the federal government is providing a solar tax credit. It's known as the ITC. It allows homeowners to deduct a portion of their solar costs from their taxes. So this is cash back. This is not a tax deduction. This is actual physical dollars that you get back. So for 2020, homeowners qualify for the federal tax credit can take up to 26% of the cost of their solar panel system, minus any other cash rebates. Now, it's worth noting that in 2021, this tax credit goes down to 22%, and for residential installations after 2021, the tax credit, as of right now, is not renewed and it does expire. It's also worth noting that there is no cap on its value. So, you can install a system that's as large as you want, and you can take that 26% of the value of that system. So again, and I posted another link in there to learn more about the federal solar tax credit. So basically, you're only paying for 3/4 of the system, of the solar system. It's actually a pretty significant savings. So now the other thing, so this includes new roofs. So the portion of your roof that ends up being underneath your installed solar system is eligible to be included in the tax credit. So there is a part of the tax code, it's section 25D, and I basically put the verbiage in there, and it basically says that no expenditure relating to a solar panel or other property installed as a roof or portion thereof shall fail to be treated as a QSEP, only because it constitutes a structural component of the structure in which it is installed. So I did check with my own personal tax advisor, and he said this is legit. However, I do strongly suggest that you consult with your own tax professional or preparer so that you understand the full details of the SITC and your eligibility. And again, I posted some additional links here that also talk about the tax credit specific to a new roof. So SREC. So this is the Solar Renewable Energy Credit. So basically, why we have this. So utilities in Pennsylvania, they basically have a standard that they must have a certain percentage of their energy that is derived from solar. So obviously, so for a company like Pico, that they have a nuclear power plant, they may not be deriving their energy from solar. So how do they meet that requirement? Well, they go out, there's an SREC market, and they actually will buy SREC so that they can meet that percentage requirement. Other companies basically do the same practice. So how does that impact us, or how are we a part of that? So homeowners with solar systems actually receive 1 SREC for every megawatt that their systems produce. So 1 megawatt is basically equal to 1,000 kilowatts. These SRECs are then bought and sold like stocks in the stock market, and their value does fluctuate with demand. So I kind of look at it like SRECs are almost like free money, basically, that you don't know how much you're going to get back based on, obviously the fluctuation in the market, but it's free money that you get at the end of the year. So net metering. What is net metering? So PECO actually allows solar owners to accumulate bill credits when your panels produce more energy than what you use. So suppose you only use 10,000 kilowatts in your system, but your solar system produces 11,000. That means that you had a credit of 1,000 kilowatts that you fed back into the energy grid, and that's depicted in the picture. So home with solar panels is actually feeding excess energy back into the grid. It's kind of neat because your utility meter actually does spin backwards, and then that energy does go back into the grid. Now, those extra credits, you use those extra credits when your panels aren't producing enough power to meet your electricity needs, like at night when there's no sunlight. So then what happens is, in the other picture, you see your home is being fed by the grid, and the meter actually goes in the opposite direction. So again, if you produce more energy than you use by the end of a billing period, the excess credits will go towards your next bill. So again, if I'm overproducing by say 1,000 kilowatts, that's going to be forwarded to my next bill. So however, they do have, the metering year does end on May 31st. It's kind of like considered their fiscal year. So at the end of May 31st, PECO will actually pay you any excess kilowatt hours that for that year. So if I have 1,000 kilowatts that I generated extra, you will actually be paid at what is known as the PTC rate. And I actually did look it up today. It is scheduled to change in September, but currently through the end of August, it's 0.06405 kilowatt per kilowatt hour. So you can kind of do the math. If you produce 1,000 kilowatts, I think if I do mine, that's what, $64. You'll get a $64 check at the end of the year. Again, for doing nothing but having a system that's generating electricity. It's worth noting that there is no limit to how much extra power generation PECO will purchase. So if you have a system that produces 150% of what you use, then you're going to get that 50% back in a net metering credit. So as a result, you can use your solar credits to supplement your energy needs and save money throughout the year. And again, you'll also receive extra money on May 31st if you produce more power than you use. So let's kind of cut to the chase. So our solar selection. So I went through a lot of the technical stuff. We talked about financing. We talked about all the incentives and stuff. So again, this was kind of a little bit of a lengthy process for us. I'd say it took me maybe a couple months to go through this whole thing. But our solar selection. So we used EnergySage. We had our vendors. There were some other vendors that I did contact outside of EnergySage. And again, some of it's just to do my due diligence to make sure that I kind of shopped around and felt like I was getting the best deal that I possibly could. So our solar selection, we chose a company called PowerStream Solar and Electric, and this is just a picture of their webpage. And really, why did we do that? So if you remember back to the My Marketplace on EnergySage, one of the things that really stuck out was their price per watt. Their price per watt was actually significantly less than the other vendors. And some of the other things that were worth noting too, when we looked at the quality ratings for the solar panel, which was an LG solar panel, and the inverter that they were proposing, it was one from a company called SMA. Both of them actually got excellent ratings. One of the other things that was really important for us was warranty coverage. And their warranty guarantees were actually very, very generous. And I'm actually going to go into that next to give you a little more detail. One of the things that I particularly liked about this business is that PowerStream is actually a full-service electric company, whereas a lot of other solar companies, they're basically solar installers. They're buying solar panels and they're strictly installing, and they move on to the next customer. Whereas this company, they actually provide other electrical services. So I felt like they had maybe a stronger grasp or a better frame of reference when it kind of came down to things like energy utilization and return on investment based on capacity and those types of things. Now, particularly with PowerStream, the vendor responsiveness was very, very good. So my vendor rep, his name was Izzy. He was excellent. I contacted him a number of times, had multiple phone calls, tons of emails. He was excellent, was almost within 24 hours all the time, was getting back in touch with me. Really made me feel very, very valued. He also did offer some alternative options and helped us customize a system that was really based on what we felt our needs were. Some of the other things I did like that their company is actually based in Lancaster County, and that they've also done many residential installs in Chester County area. Sorry, it's starting to get dark. I'm going to turn my light on. Okay. So that really answers some of the whys. So again, warranties. Again, this was something that I was particularly sensitive to, and a lot of it started to evolve as I learned more about the technologies. Almost all solar panels have a 25-year product warranty. It's really not an uncommon thing to find that. One of the things that stuck out for me was the LG solar panels. LG actually provides a labor warranty in addition to the product warranty. So meaning that if the product ever fails, they'll actually pay you up to $450 to have somebody come out, take down the panel, or repair and replace it free of charge. They're the only solar manufacturer to do that. Any other solar manufacturer, they will cover the cost of the product, but you're going to have to pay out of pocket to get somebody up on your roof, take the panel down, and then reinstall it. What else? Oh, so performance guarantee. So again, the LG solar modules, they also provided a 25-year performance guarantee that they basically guaranteed that within certain criteria, those solar modules are going to perform and in as far as gain from solar electricity. They also proposed an SMA string inverter, which again, if you remember, our house faces due south. Outside of the dormers, which there is a subtle shade thing to factor in, but primarily we get really good direct sunlight. So a string inverter actually was considered a good solution for us. This particular string inverter does have technology built into it to adjust for, they call a shade fix. So it is able to factor in some shading issues. It does provide a 15-year product warranty. Now, the comparison is if you have solar panels with microinverters are great in that their warranties are 25 years. You think, hey, that's awesome. However, it's the labor cost that gets you. So if your microinverter ever fails, you have to pay, and actually I did a little bit of research on this. So the labor to have somebody get up on your roof, take your solar panel off, replace your microinverter is anywhere between $200 and $250 every time your microinverter fails. Now, something as I start to think about, where are those microinverters? Those things are attached directly to the panel. Where are those situated? Those things are situated underneath the panel, attached to your roof. So over the course of 25 years, that's a lot of, to me, it's almost like a lot of abuse that it's going to get. So what's the likelihood that that microinverter is going to fail within those 25 years? I personally feel like it's probably likely that it's going to happen. So in my mind, I start to say, okay, so the system that I was proposed was 28 panels. Well, if I start to do the math, 28, times 2 or $250, I'm starting to look at over the course of 25 years, that's an extra $5,000 I'm going to have to shell out a little bit at a time. But in order to change out each microinverter at least one time. That kind of made me feel like I was getting nickel and dimed over the lifespan of my solar system. The alternative, the string inverter, it's 15 years. It's kind of known that somewhere between 10 and 15 years it's going to go. And the cost to replace it is somewhere in the realm of $2,000 to $3,000. Obviously, it's a larger chunk of money, but to me, that's a cost savings that I'm willing to eat as opposed to shelling out almost $5,000 that I'm almost anticipating with microinverters. Again, just something as food for thought. I'm really not pulling that out of the sky either. So as I talked with various vendors, that was something that some of the vendors that used to use microinverters in their installations and then got away from them to string inverters with optimizers. They said basically it's because microinverters were failing, and it was extra work that they were having to absorb in actually going and replacing them. So again, it's just something worth considering as you kind of do your own cost-benefit analysis to see if that's right for you. So. There is something called rapid shutdown. So again, this has to do with the type of string inverter setup that I have. There's something called rapid shutdown, which is a requirement for every system. So it's actually built in microinverters already. It's basically a fail-safe that if anybody ever needs to get up on the roof or something happens, it's a fail-safe that automatically shuts down the power generation of the system so that people don't get electrocuted when they go up on the roof. So again, a 25-year product warranty on that. Also got a 25-year product warranty on the racking. So that's basically what the panels get mounted to. The installer, so PowerStream actually gave a 25-year workmanship warranty. So if there's anything related to the installation, they basically said it's on them, they will cover it, which I was really, really impressed with. A lot of other companies only will give 10, maybe 15 years, but they actually went the extra step and gave full 25 years. And then they also did a 1-year labor warranty. Now the one, again, this is a comparison, one other company that they primarily use microinverters. Their labor warranty was 5 years. So if your microinverters failed in the first 5 years, they would actually pay for the labor of replacing it. However, to me, after 5 years, from year 5 through 25 is, the amount of use those microinverters are going to get. Is, in my head, I'm going, yeah, they're going to fail at some point. So again, at that point, you're still going to have to absorb that cost. So, all right. So let's really get to more of the meat and potatoes. So how much is my quote unquote system need? What are the costs, and really what's the ROI? So I know, at the end of this, that's really kind of the most important thing. What's my return on my investment? How long is this thing going to take to pay for? So I'm going to share kind of how I went through that process for myself. Now, it's worth noting that we went through a purchase agreement, so we're not doing a lease or a PPA. So kind of where you start in calculating this, you start with your PICO bill. It's on page 2. And there's 3 key things that you want to look at. So you want to look at your distribution charge, and you want to look at your generation charge, and then you want to look at your average kilowatt per month and your total annual kilowatt usage. So for me, it's worth noting that for this particular bill from May to June, my distribution charge was right around 6.5 cents per kilowatt. My generation was 16.5 cents per kilowatt, which I'll touch on that in a minute, which that's outrageously high for what it's worth. And then number 3 is your average cost per month, which for me was right around 150 kilowatts per month. And right around my annual kilowatts is right around 10,300. So important numbers to keep in mind. So when I look at my system need and my cost, okay. So again, my utilization, 859 kilowatts per month, 10,300 per year. Now, when I look at calculating my electric cost, so you have to look at your distribution per kilowatt. So for me, that was 6.5 cents, right around 6.5 cents per kilowatt. The generation, which up through July was 16.5 cents per kilowatt. So you add those 2 numbers together, and that basically gives you your electric rate. So for me at the time, that was right around 23 cents per kilowatt. Again, that number is sky high. And thankfully, I had one solar vendor that he said, I think your promo rate expired, which it did. We had energy, and the promo rate expired, and then we went into a variable rate, which at the time was 16.5 cents. I've since, beginning August, switched back to PICO. So the distribution still stays the same, but our generation rate now comes down to just under 6.5 cents per kilowatt. So basically, our electric rate is now almost 13 cents per kilowatt. So again, we look at the electric rate, you multiply it by 859 kilowatts because that's how much kilowatts we're using per month. So going forward from August, our monthly electric cost is right around $111 per month. And it's projected to be an annual $1,334. And again, highly encourage you to look at your utility bill and do these calculations as well. To be honest, for many months, it's something that, I look more at what my utility bill, just, how much do I have to pay? And, I look at the bar chart to see how much, I used 1 month versus the previous months. Obviously, now I'm a little bit more diligent at looking at those numbers. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about solar panel productivity, cost, and incentives. So I'm going to keep in mind the numbers that we were just looking at as far as our electric cost, but right now we're going to jump into our solar panels. So remember we talked a little bit about need net, and our system was projected to be at 103%. Now, doing simple math, that really ends up being right around 10,600 kilowatts per year. Now, something else to keep in mind, remember the ITC tax credit is 26%. So when we look at the gross cost of our solar system, now the system that we were proposed cost $19,900. So that's the gross cost. When we take 26% of that, the net cost actually is just under $15,000. It's $14,726. Now, other things to keep in mind: SRECs. We talked about SRECs before. Those are you get 1 SREC for every 1,000 kilowatts that you produce. So annually, our system is expected to produce over 10,000 kilowatts. So we're expected to get 10 SRECs per year. So currently, SRECs are being traded at $22. Not a lot. It's actually kind of on a downswing right now. Typically, it fluctuates, but it does live somewhere in the $40 to $50 range. But I'm going to, just for the sake of this example, I'm going to stick with the 22 just because that's the number it is right now. So each year, our SREC return is expected to be a little over $200. So I factored in a broke fee, so it's like $211. We talked before about the PTC rate. So with net metering, I'm producing 10,600 kilowatts per year. I'm expected to only use 10,300. So that creates a difference of 300 kilowatts per year. So the PTC rate is it's a little less than 6.5 cents. It's 0.06405. So again, you do the math, a little less than 6.5 cents times 300. So my net metering check that I'm expected to get, it's not a lot, obviously, it's a little under $20 a month. So again, incentives. I'm going to get $20 for net metering, or just under $20. I'm going to get SRECs a little bit over $200. And what do I know? My net cost on my system is a little under $15,000, so $14,726. So when I start to build out my return on investment, I'm looking at, first thing I'm going to look at is a cash payment. So if I pay out of pocket, what's that going to mean? That means that going forward, that the annual electric cost that I would have paid to PICO or whoever, whether it's PICO, Energy, that cost is now going to go towards the cost of paying or reimbursing me basically for the cost of the solar system. So when you start looking at year-over-year numbers, you can start to see first year 1334 and then 2669. So you start to see right around year 11, you get right around that 14,000. It's just under 14,700. So that's really where you're starting to look at your break-even, when you're going to earn your break-even point. You're going to get your return on investment. However, if you take your SREX and your net metering money, and you also direct that into your year-over-year, it does impact a little bit. So instead of it being 11 years, it does kind of bump it down somewhere between 9 and 10 years. And again, it's also worth noting that SREX are currently trading a little bit low. Net metering at PTC rate, as the cost of that utility will rise, that PTC rate may also rise. So it's also possible that your net metering may also go up as well. So again, they're not guarantees. I'm sticking with current rates, but again, things are fluid at different times, so you do have those things to kind of be mindful of. Now, suppose I don't have cash to pay for it, and I want to go out and do a fixed rate loan, something maybe like a home equity loan. Now, I completely understand. I'm not an accountant by background at all, so I just kind of said, so assume I go out and get a 3% interest rate. Now, if I wanted to look at my loan payment, if I kept it the same as what I'm paying in my electric, which was around, $111 a month, at a 3% interest rate, it's going to take 161 months. So that projects to be a little over 13 years. Now, sounds like a lot. In reality, when you get home equity loan, I believe the term rates are somewhere they're in terms of time, I think like 10 or 20 years. So you're really looking at a term rate of more like 10 years. So the cost per month is it's going to be a little bit higher. But again, at 10 years, you're going to have paid for your system free and clear. And then after 10 years, all the money or all the costs that you would have paid to utility, now you're keeping for yourself. Just some things to also look at, some assumptions that I kept in mind when I was kind of doing some of these things. Assumptions I made. I did not look at any changes in electric rate over time. We've been talking about that. The utility rates are invariably they're going to go up. The change in the SREC trade value, again, is kind of on a downswing. It usually typically lives somewhere between $40 and $50. I didn't factor in any change in the PTC rate. Again, over time, the PTC rate may rise, and again, that may provide greater reimbursement in net metering. I also looked at maintaining an annual solar production of 10,600 kilowatts. So over time, it is expected that solar panels do produce slightly lower percent year after year. And what the exact numbers are, it's different per panel. I believe it's the first year, I think it decreases by like 0.5%. And then again, it's a fraction of a percentage year after year after that. What else? Maintaining annual electric utilization. So it's assuming that every year I'm going to maintain 10,300 kilowatts per year. However, we start to think about other things. So I didn't look at the impact of any pending upgrades. So I would still have my original HVAC system. Obviously, when that eventually goes and I replace that, it's going to be a higher efficiency system. It's going to use less energy. Other things that we've kind of started to do, again, we're replacing the windows in the house. So again, high quality windows should also help with the cost of electricity. I also did not apply the ITC credit for the roof. So we are one of those homes that we will be getting a new roof. What that ITC credit is for the roof, I don't exactly know yet. But again, I did not factor that into the ITC rebate. And then lastly, so the last thing, and this has kind of been a hot button question for some residents in the neighborhood, is what about the HOA? Again, I said this, we just celebrated our 5th year anniversary living in the neighborhood. We've not really had any issues with requests with the HOA. And I did reach out to HOA board members, and I was able to talk with one of them. And honestly, they were generally very supportive. They said, listen, go right ahead. Just make sure that, whatever solution you are suggesting, make sure you write it up, get your architectural request put in so that we have it on file. But really, there were not any reservations with having a solar solution on our roofs. So at the end of the day, so the question really that you have to answer is this worth it? And for us, really, this was a strong yes. So our considerations, looking at the current incentives and the tax credits, the payback time versus the life expectancy of the system expected to last 25 years. We're expecting to live in this neighborhood for quite some time. We have young kids. We're expecting anywhere in the ballpark of at least 15 to 20 years in the neighborhood, and maybe possibly longer. Again, I talked about this, the expected efficiency gains that can help reduce utilization, things like the HVAC, the windows, etc. And then other things too, the anticipated rising energy costs. So, the expectation that I have is that my utility bill, the cost per kilowatt is going to go up. So I can do certain things, like I can replace windows, I can replace the HVAC system, but those energy costs are going to continue to rise. So, but obviously, each home has to make their decision based on their own circumstances. So, but these were, the various factors that we looked at that helped us come to our decision. So, kind of long-winded. So if anybody has any questions, I mean, I don't think I have anybody forcibly muted. I think you can unmute yourself if there's any questions you have. I'd be glad to answer it. We do not have a time limit on this particular Zoom call, so it's not going to auto shut off. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions, comments? I must have bored Adam Charnley because he dropped off. Just kidding. So.
Hey, Alex.
Yes.
I was just curious how your homeowners association was going to deal with all these new solar panels, because as you drive into your neighborhood, you are the first house that they see. So association.
That's actually a great question. And it was sorry, I'm trying to see. So that's been something we've been really conscious of, and I think one of the reasons why when we started even down this road, we were looking at solar roofs, solar tile roofs, because aesthetically, again, we are the first house in the neighborhood. We didn't want anything that was really kind of gaudy, sticking out, or aesthetically unpleasing to the neighborhood. And again, just talking with Grace, people that lived in the neighborhood for some time, there were concerns that the HOA wouldn't approve a solar solution. So that was really, again, beginning that was really the driver why we were looking at solar shingles as a solution. And again, as that became a non-viable option, we started looking at solar panels. We were able to get solutions where they lay flat on the roof. With a new roof, we can pick a color that is a darker shade. So and we picked solar panels that are all black. So again, the contrast isn't as great. If anything, they kind of absorb into the color of the roof, so they really don't stand out. And I think, again, talking through some of those things, I think alleviated any, even if there were aesthetic concerns, I think alleviated those things. But yeah, the indication that I got was that there was really wouldn't be an issue with getting solar panels. And again, one of the things that, from an aesthetic standpoint that we also were conscious of, the dormers. Aesthetically, they create a really nice look for the house. But from solar panels, putting solar panels on the dormers, which you can do, it did create kind of an odd look. You kind of have these wings almost that look like are sticking out from the dormers. I didn't particularly like that, and neither did Laura. So we were able to find a solution where we got enough panels laying flat on the roof so that again, aesthetically, it really blends well. We expect it to blend really well.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you for the effort and time you put in this presentation.
Oh, my fault. Thank you for attending. I appreciate you making the time. Hopefully, you found it valuable. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by, reach out, messages through the Meadows site, or I jokingly say, just with 2 kids, 2 dogs, and a cat, the lights are always on and the doors are always open. Just kind of how we roll.
I was wondering if there's some way you could share your presentation so we could get those links and such that you showed.
So if I'm able to do it, I'll post it to the Meadows. And I'm going to check. I thought I was recording this presentation, so I'm going to see if that also recorded. Hopefully it did. Sorry, take me a moment. Okay. Just dropped off. But yeah, no, I'll definitely share those things. If you can get the recording, I'll certainly share that too.